thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm John Kelly with Titan Cloud along with Brent Puzak, and we are wrapping up a three-part webinar series today. The webinar series has been called Leveraging Technology to Improve Maintenance Efficiency, and today we're going to be speaking specifically about actionable intelligence within work order management. As I mentioned, I'm John Kelly, and Brent Puzak is with me here today. Brent heads up our solutions consulting business after an extensive career in the industry as an environmental and maintenance director at a very large retailer, and we're very fortunate to have his perspective with respect to all the areas where technology can improve maintenance efficiency within the retail space. As I mentioned, this is the third of three webinars about leveraging technology to improve your maintenance efficiency. And to give you a bit of a recap for anyone who maybe missed the previous sessions, the first session that we had was all about cutting down on alarm noise. We all know that automatic tank gauges, tank monitors, ATGs, whatever the terminology is that you use to refer to these, can be very chatty pieces of equipment. Some high priority issues, some low priority issues, some that fall somewhere in between, but regardless, they provide a lot of information to your team, and you got to be able to manage that in order to manage your maintenance efficiently and your compliance effectively. We spoke about how there are some very powerful technology tools these days to help you reduce on any false positives or false negatives, and get to the real actionable issues, whether those are things that can be troubleshot remotely or may require a field service dispatch in order to be addressed. In our second session, a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about facility inspections and how to streamline that, also using technology. Specifically, we spoke about some of the mobile tools that we've got here at Titan Cloud that allow you to capture information at scale digitally and respond to any kind of discrepancies that may have occurred during those walkthrough inspections, whether they're for compliance or some kind of just generic performance inspection that you may have designed for your facilities, be it some kind of mystery shopper or otherwise. Nonetheless, technology is wonderful. However, in our industry, there will always be a need for field service of some kind when incidents or issues occur at a facility. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how you actually respond and manage those field service work orders when they are indeed required and are not things that can just be addressed remotely. So I think we're going to have a second poll question pop up here, and we're curious to understand how those of you who are attending today are managing field service work orders. There is, of course, Titan's maintenance module, which gives you the ability to dispatch tickets and so on and so forth from within the Titan Cloud environment. There are third-party software tools, things like ServiceChannel, ServiceNow. There's a variety of different vendors that may be out there. Some people still use spreadsheets and emails. There's nothing wrong with that. Could probably be improved, but it works for certainly some folks that are out there, and maybe you're just doing it some other way that we haven't captured here. But curious to get your responses to that one. Feel free to keep providing your feedback into that poll there as we move on to the topic of today's discussion, which is managing those field service work orders. Now, Brent, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk a little bit about enterprise software systems and maybe some of the context around how people use them.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, John. Hey guys, when you think about all the different systems, across your organization, right? Most companies, right? They've got different spreadsheets, they've got different CMMS systems, they've got different items that are helping them kind of run their day-to-day business. But a lot of those systems don't necessarily kind of easily communicate across your organization, or maybe even external to your organization. So as we kind of move through this presentation, one of the things we want to kind of share with you guys is how all of this information kind of fits together, like what John was talking about and what we've talked about in past presentations is different segments of that, right? But overall, those items, you're managing those. And then the exceptions and the issues are being dispatched out through your maintenance system. So we want to try to help you try to determine how to kind of reduce that overall burden on your teams and leverage the data that you're actually capturing from those systems. And we're going to ask a poll here as well, where we're wanting to kind of understand, maybe the percentage. So if you think about the software or the systems that you're using today, are you fully utilizing that? Are you're using 100% of those systems? Are you using 50% of the systems, 25 or less than 25% of the systems? And before we kind of finish up this slide, we'll come back in and kind of share with you what the group here is kind of talking about within the systems. But some interesting data points is when we kind of looked across our clients, like we deal with clients every single day, existing clients and opportunities that are coming in. And what we see and what we kind of read out across the industry is that out of the platforms that are out there, the clients are really only using, there's about 75% of those systems that are being underutilized, meaning that, they're using just the function that it works within their area. They're really not looking about ways to kind of use it to help other teams, or actually using it to fully integrate in maybe with other service vendors or outside contractors. So so one of the things we're going to talk about when you're looking at your systems is how do you leverage that across, not just within your group, but share that information more cross-functionally across your organization, and even externally within the vendors and the supporting groups that you might work with. The other side is when you think about data, a lot of companies have really started looking at building data lakes. How do they access more data to really be able to leverage and make more valued decisions? I think the C-store industry as a whole has kind of been behind the flow of information. It's really picked up in the last number of years, but you're seeing a lot of companies now that are building their own data lakes, trying to pull data in from all of these systems that may not easily talk together. But we're going to really kind of help you kind of talk about how do you pull that in and make it more cross-functional and use the data to really be able to drive benefit within your organization. But a lot of the data has really been over the last 2 years, and I thought an interesting statistic that I read is that the amount of data that companies are collecting is expecting to kind of double over annually, year over year. So the amount of information that you're collecting on your equipment from your customers kind of globally across the industry is really going to continue to skyrocket. So if you're an organization that is managing in some form or fashion with spreadsheets and other systems, having something to pull all of those data points together so that you can really get some good actionable data is key as you kind of move forward and develop kind of what your roadmap might look like in the future. The other aspect is how prepared are companies to actually leverage the amount of data that they're getting. And I think what we kind of mentioned is that a lot of the companies are still kind of learning how to capture all of that. Really, the larger corporations, they may be developing their own data lakes. Smaller companies may be still managing off of global spreadsheets or independent systems that may not readily communicate back and forth. But those things are going to be kind of critical as we kind of talk through how to kind of leverage these data points to create kind of better data-driven decision making. So as you move forward, and the other key aspect is really the accuracy of the data that you're collecting. Right, a lot of companies, like we saw with some of the statistics, only 30% of the companies have some type of formalized data governance programs. Right, so the types of data that they're collecting, they're not really thinking about what that's going to look like over the next 3 to 5 years. So making sure, as you think forward into how you're running your programs, how are you going to leverage the data? What kind of data are you going to be collecting? We kind of talked about that in our earlier presentations, but that's absolutely critical in how you kind of run your business and use those data points as you move forward. So if we look at this, just looking at the poll, we have about 13% of the participants saying that they're utilizing about 100% of their systems. So that's really good, fully leveraging those systems that are out there. But about 75% are saying that they're around 50% utilization. So I think there's always opportunity to kind of improve and better utilize those systems components. And then we've got about 13% that are less than 25% utilization. So it's kind of interesting data points and around the same, very similar to what we're seeing out across the industry as well.
Yeah, Brian, I think, one of the interesting points you make, and it can sound a little bit intimidating when, there's all this data flowing in, 70% of companies not prepared, people don't have a formal governance program, lots of people concerned about they're not using, the full extent of their functionality. But I think that, one of the areas that is important to understand as people go on a sort of data journey, if you will, is that you don't need to boil the ocean all at once. And there are ways to make small improvements in key areas, that will have a high impact on your organization. And I think one of the parts that we often see with respect to Titan Cloud customers who maybe are not using the full level of functionality that's available to them is that consultation with their customer support team or something like that can help them really say, okay, we don't need to do everything right now, but like, what are the key business priorities for you? And where can we help you maybe identify some functionality within the system you're not fully utilizing, kind of show you what you don't know, because there are often the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns when you're taking on a new initiative in terms of making an internal improvement operationally. And so I think would certainly encourage folks, and we'll touch on this again at the end, to get in touch with your Titan support team to set up an operational business review. Because if you do feel like you're underutilizing the Titan system particularly, we would love to make sure that you feel like you're getting everything that you can. And if you can't get absolutely everything all at once, taking a step-by-step, thoughtful and methodical approach to get the highest priority things for you, and we can, kind of guide you there. So I think, it can be very intimidating, but, there are steps to take to get on that journey, right, Brett?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point, John. Thanks. And John, we'll transition it over to you for the holistic approach.
For sure, yeah. So, one of the pieces that, we wanted to touch on, and this is, again, building from our previous couple of webinars, where, we've got alarm management, you've got inspection management, all that sort of stuff. If you have different systems to achieve different goals and complete different tasks, what you risk running into, if they do not seamlessly speak to one another, you'll end up not only with information that is siloed, but then because people act on information, you will have people that are siloed, and you will have activities that are siloed, and everything kind of becomes siloed as a result of your information being disparately spread across a spreadsheet on somebody's computer or in an email thread, or whatever it might be. And there are lots of different activities that can be captured within the Titan software universe. There are many activities that I'm sure lots of you, and we've seen that 40% of the folks that are on the phone or that are on the call here today use some kind of third-party software for maintenance. One of the areas that we wanted to highlight today was our ability to integrate with third-party software vendors in the event that that's something that you use. Because for us, making sure that all these disparate systems, can, speak together and work together is very important. So we try and capture as much of our, highly focused stuff around the specifics of your petroleum equipment and how to get the most out of it. We do have maintenance modules, and we have the ability to integrate. So I would certainly encourage those of you using a third-party software tool to touch base with your Titan support rep about that as well, if you haven't discussed it already. But when everything does connect and speak together and is properly integrated, it can really provide some important operational benefits for you and your team. We've seen efficiency gains of up to 50% in terms of executing activities, cost savings, from whether that's, improving on, internal, the amount of internal work and communication that goes into addressing issues, or, actual hard costs of sending people out to facilities when they, may not be required to do so. But with the ability to see everything under one roof, you can just focus on executing the things that really make you different as a business, and allow you to improve your customer satisfaction, which will, drive repeat business and improve your image overall. So I don't know, Brent, if you had any other comments that you wanted to add to that, but we've seen that this integrated holistic system is a highly efficient way to do things, and having your maintenance work orders synced up with alarm notifications and inspection discrepancies is a big opportunity to do so.
Yeah, absolutely, John. I mean, I think holistically, right? I mean, it's a cultural shift for an organization a lot of times, right? A lot of times people are managing maintenance very seamlessly across the organization. A lot of times there's a lot of hills and valleys in that, and so I think it's the way that you can share information and understand how you can benefit other groups, right? So sometimes, and we're going to share in some of the customer results that we have in just a bit, but sometimes there's things that other departments and even your service providers are doing that impacts the volume of service calls that are coming in, the number or the cost of those service calls that are coming in. So having kind of cross-functional visibility and really having a platform that can kind of communicate across those areas gives you the way to kind of really understand where you can kind of leverage those data points to help you drive down the overall number and the cost relative to that. So a lot of great points there. And so just to kind of share with you, what we've actually seen from a lot of our clients here. We've had customers where when they implement and really kind of thinking about this cross functionally, where it's touching their fuel group, it's touching their maintenance group, it's touching their fuels accounting. If you kind of go back or think about that initial slide, all the different functional groups within an organization, a lot of these things are really kind of tied in, and where John's talking about that holistic approach is when all of those departments are working together to really understand how their department impacts others, how those departments impacts their customers, right? Because at the end of the day, the customers are the ones that are really keeping those sites running or keeping everybody kind of employed. So it's really making sure that those are staying operational and sharing information kind of cross-functionally. So, the customer that we're looking at here, when they implemented the software, they were looking at in the initial state with kind of the same source sales and really what they're looking at from the customer experience side. They were struggling to get information around events that were happening at their stores that were impacting their customers, such as flow rate, nozzle down conditions across their locations. They were really relying on what we call the kind of the angry customer, where the customer drives up to a pump, it's pumping really slow, or the nozzle's bagged off, and the operator really didn't have a lot of visibility to that. So being able to automate that in a way where instead of relying on that angry customer or relying on the customer to notify the store and the store, having to leave the other customers there to call in a work order, being able to automate that in a way where they could streamline that and get those type of issues in very quickly. They could spot flow rate of issues on their specific meters where maybe an impact was 7 gallons per minute. They could flag any of those conditions that were below 7 gallons per minute, and then they could get in touch with their store, or they could get a technician dispatched out to follow up on that. And what they saw by having more real-time visibility to those was they saw a 2% increase in same-store sales over the year that they ran the program. And then they saw, $1 million in savings relative to the customer experience, where they were having pumps up and running more frequently. So it was a measurable result relative to the improvement that they have on the overall customers at the locations, and relative to how they were actually handling and dispatching. Right, they were changing filters out on a scheduled basis. So instead of having to do that, they could see that information more real time. So there's a lot of functionality there that also overlap departments kind of outside of the maintenance side, right? Maintenance was dispatching people out to handle that, but operations, the environmental team would get called in on some of those type of issues. Their fuels accounting for different things. So, the overlap of those different groups as they started to work together really helped to kind of facilitate the savings that they were seeing across those items. And when they looked at kind of the efficiency standpoint, all of those different groups that were managing before they kind of went to more of a holistic platform approach, they were managing through spreadsheets. They might have had some automation within different systems, but they didn't have really anything that gave them cross-functional visibility to different data points on how they operate. And they also didn't have programs that actually would help them kind of automate repetitive and ongoing tasks. So by doing that, once they shifted to more of a platform approach, they were able to automate a lot of those routine tasks. and they saw kind of a 50% efficiency improvement within their staff, where those staff members now can start focusing on ways to better improve the organization, drive out additional cost, drive out additional efficiencies in how they're operating. And it's kind of an ongoing optimization approach, which we'll kind of talk about in just a bit. So there's a lot of opportunity within those areas to really drive out visibility. They also saw kind of a 5% improvement within their fuel management side. So the losses that they were having to write off kind of across their organization. I think on one of the previous slides you kind of saw that the NACS group was saying that the average convenience store has about $10,000 per year that they're writing off because of loss kind of across their organization. So companies are looking for ways to find ways to reduce that overall loss at their sites. So what this company did was they looked at ways on the fuel side where they found that there was a kind of an innate loss that was happening. They were an acquisition growth company. They were buying locations. The gauges, the tank monitors that were at those locations were not programmed correctly. They had the wrong tank charts. They had the store next door was the same tank chart that was programmed in on the one that was running the reporting. So they were using the technology to really be able to build new tank charts on their sites, and they got a huge uplift for the accuracy of the charts and the reduction in loss that were occurring from that. So they had better quality data, more actionable data that they were dispatching their teams on. Really kind of a root cause analysis where instead of going out and calibrating or changing filters, they were able to really be able to see what was actually causing those issues. Instead of having to go through maybe a 10-step triage process, they could narrow that down to one step and reduce the number of dispatches from those teams. So maintenance was a lot happier relative to the information that was coming in from the other teams on what they were requesting. There was less demand on the service providers to actually fix it right the first time. So that helped them kind of drive out additional savings overall. The other side was kind of that 20% savings, or the $4 million of savings that they had on the equipment side of things, right? Is they found that they had additional visibility, the knowledge of what was actually on their locations. Also, their spend that they were actually incurring across their sites, they were finding they were different based on geographies. They had different price structures for different types of equipment, different types of tests they were performing. So it gave them more global visibility where their teams could kind of look at all of that data in one centralized solution and really be able to leverage that to RFP a lot of their services to help kind of drive out that savings of $4 million. So so there's certainly a number of different data points here that we that these customers can kind of capture, and these are things that we hear kind of day in and day out. Where when we talk about kind of global visibility, it's really the ability to share information, not just cross-functionally within your organization, but leveraging those data points with different team members, different companies that you work with, your haulers, your other suppliers, all of those aspects of it. So tremendous opportunity to kind of provide savings there. And if we go back in and we,
yeah,
go ahead, John, sorry.
Brian, one of the things, just to piggyback on what you're sharing here, I think one of the pieces that's important here is that in addition to having more streamlined operations by having integrated systems in terms of your data feeds coming in from equipment issue notifications, inspection issue notifications, or whatever it might be, and then having that being integrated with work order functionality, not only is that improving you operationally, it's also providing you with the ability to hold yourself accountable or to hold your third-party vendors accountable for their performance, for their costs, for any of these things. If you have things all disconnected and lacking integration, then you're just depending on someone piecing together and connecting the dots in order for you to drive those kind of broader operational improvements. Because as you said, with this particular situation, the customer was able to turn around and say to their different vendors who were charging them different prices for the same service, hey, we got to get things in line here because this isn't working for us. Exactly. So I think that level of visibility provides accountability, which is critical if you want to make improvements to the organization.
Exactly. Great point. And just before we kind of leave this slide here, we did have another survey question we wanted to post out for the group here as well. And it's it's really around how much are you leveraging data today to actually drive decisions or discussions with your vendors. And if you are, who are you actually having those discussions with? Are you having those discussions with your internal teams, with manufacturers, with vendors, or with all of those, right? Maybe you're kind of globally measuring those data points. So we'll give it just a second here, and I'll touch on one final item here, and then we'll read through the results here. But overall, right, when we kind of look at savings, this specific vendor as well, or specific client, had a 25% savings or $2 million savings in risk reduction. So if you think about all of the claims that are actually issued across an organization within a given year, water claims, and maybe releases and things like that, right? They're setting aside reserves to address those claims for potential lawsuits and things like that. Well, this company was actually leveraging all those data points and all that information with their risk teams, with their accounting teams, their facilities maintenance, environmental. All those teams kind of came together to really understand what those claims were and develop processes and programs to really be able to push those numbers down and actually drive the savings volumes that we have here. So there's also a tremendous opportunity. So it looks like we do have looks like everybody's kind of 100%. They're using data today, kind of across all of the areas that we mentioned before, to really be able to drive value within the organization. So that's great that you're, within the systems that you have, that you're leveraging those data points. So John, we'll jump to the next one. So when you think about the journey that you might be on to, within your work orders program, and then, kind of cross-functionally leveraging information today, right? Because we're kind of talking about this being broader than just necessarily your maintenance functionality. Really, you may be in different areas of this, this path or this journey. So just kind of sharing with you, like when you're thinking about today, you might be a very reactive company, even with the data points that you're collecting in. But how do you get all of those data points into more of a digital format, right? Get it into a place where it's kind of centralized, where everything's in one location, right? If you think about it from a compliance standpoint, you're preparing for compliance inspection, you're not having to go out to all these systems to pull all that information, which takes time, takes energy. You have a high risk of missing something and losing something within that aspect of it. But if you keep it kind of centralized, you can share that information kind of globally across your teams and even externally. Having it kind of digitized within that process, really, looking at ways to, around what's the process, how many steps does it take to actually go through and handle a specific type of issue or process. So, how can you kind of look at those items and look at ways to kind of eliminate steps and reduce the impact on your teams, right? Because again, the amount of steps that you're able to kind of take out, you're able to kind of reinvest that time into efforts that can really help drive value for your organization. And then John had kind of mentioned early on, it's building additional efficiencies through connectivity. And when we're talking about that, it's really like the IoT space, being able to get remote connectivity to a lot of these, your coolers, your dispensers, your remote devices, or even tying in through APIs. So like from a compliance services side, where you're dispatching a high number of dispatches, how can you kind of automate those dispatches so your teams aren't having to kind of work in two different systems? You're able to kind of use, like what we have in our maintenance platform is really kind of bi-directional dispatching, where it triggers a work order in the system, and those systems kind of communicate as those technicians complete the work. So it's reducing the number of touch points that staff have to actually do to follow up on those issues and to kind of collect critical items. And then it's really kind of leveraging all of those data. Once you get all of this information in one location, you're connected to all those devices. It's leveraging all of those data points into actionable intelligence, right? It's just like what we talked about when we kind of got started. We have all that information together. We've worked with all of our teams and external teams. We're leveraging those data points to really drive value out within the organization. And then you're continually optimizing this, right? It never really stops. You should continue to be looking at this at some frequency by the information you're collecting to really continue to refine the types of issues that are happening the most frequently. and that you're looking for ways to capture more granular data on those issues to maybe refine your processes, reduce your operational cost. And again, maintenance is a huge aspect of that. But if you can tie in other systems into that view, it gives you a more holistic view of what's happening kind of across your organization and how external factors may tie into those items as well. John, we'll jump to the next one. So the other side here is, when you think about your roadmap and your planning, most companies have a roadmap that they're looking at the next year, 5 years, 10 years down the line. Organizations and individuals and teams should also think about the same thing. And the journey that we've kind of talked about is really something that's critical in order to be able to kind of get into the process that we kind of talk about holistically, is detect, manage, and kind of optimize what you're learning. But the main thing I think is critical is the people that are kind of involved in the process, right? It's, depending on where your journey is, individuals that are working on teams today may be very manual process driven. So those individuals may need to build skill sets in order to get you to that next level and leverage the data and the analytics that you're capturing through your maintenance systems and the other systems there to help you kind of drive your business. So really being able to take a step back and making sure that your teams have the right skill sets to manage the work volume, right? As we kind of talked about before on the initial slide, if we're doubling in size of the data that we're managing every year, we got to have some really good processes and really good people that can help us leverage the data that we're collecting to really drive our business. Making sure that those individuals and the processes that really are capturing all of those data points are very concise is a critical aspect. We really understand each phase of the process, each step for each item that drives cost and impacts our teams. So those are critical items that we need to look at from a process standpoint, because if we don't understand the process as a whole, we can't look for ways to kind of reduce the number of steps that will drive efficiency for our team and help us reduce the amount of effort that our teams is putting out there. And then again, kind of pulling all that together into the platform, right? Because just like the picture shows here, right? You've got a roadmap to find out, but at some point you're going to hit mountains, you're going to hit roadblocks that are going to tie you up. So how do you easily kind of navigate that path down that roadmap, and pulling all those together in more of a holistic global view from a platform perspective is critical to give you that view and help you be successful on that overall journey. So John, not sure if you have anything to kind of add here, or I think we're kind of moving into our Q&A side.
Yeah, I think that you bring up some good points, Brent, around kind of it's a continued journey of thinking through which processes you want to improve, figuring out where the inefficiencies are, and working towards improving a particular subset of your organization and your operation, and then kind of circling back and checking the next one off the list. So it's an evolution and a journey and an ongoing process. It never quite finishes. But I think certainly the Titan team is here to help you as you navigate that journey, because we recognize that it can be complicated in this industry, which presents a lot of challenges for operators. And so we're looking forward to hopefully getting in touch with many of you to help you navigate all of those together. With that, I think we're going to have Jeff Sexton join us for any questions that may have come up. But as Jeff is joining, just wanted to highlight that Titan is going to be out and about over the next few months. We're going to have folks at a number of upcoming events. Sounds like a number of you will be at the next show later this year. If you want to schedule a meeting with our team, you can feel free to scan that code there and set something up in advance, or you can click on the option in the bottom left corner. We'd love to have you at our booth. We have a nice big booth this year and lots of new information to share with you. So we're sure it'll be a very busy event, and we look forward to getting some time on the books with you early. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll also be at the Public Works Expo in San Diego. We'll be at the Sigma Maintenance and Environmental Share Group in a few weeks' time in San Antonio. And then we'll be at the annual conference for Sigma in Orlando come November. So would certainly love to see any of you at any of those events as they come up. But Connor, do you want to share any of the questions that have been posed, and we'll take a crack?
Yes, sounds good. We have gotten a couple questions coming from the audience, so I'll just kick it off here with the first one. Are there additional fees for the APIs with third-party systems?
Hey, John, I can take that one. Yeah, it really depends. Like with our maintenance systems, typically there would be a fee for an API to connect to a maintenance system, but it really depends on the type of system that you're connecting to. I mean, we get a lot of feeds from other systems like PDI, just to name a few different types of systems that are out there. Some other back office systems where those necessarily are not fees associated with it. But certain items do have fees associated with them. It really is something you probably need to talk to, if you're interested in that, talking to one of the Titan sales representatives or some of our staff to really understand what your needs are, what specific APIs, and whether or not there's a cost associated with
it. And I'll just add to that, with the API, I think you touched on it, but we can do the two-way communication between most of the maintenance platforms, depending on what you're talking about. So you can get data back into our platform and push and pull. So the API is definitely a solution if you already have some type of maintenance work order system.
Yeah, and some, just to be for full transparency, some work order management systems, for instance, that are already out there, we've got existing integrations with, and those are going to be much easier for us to work on than something that we're spinning up from scratch. So if we are building something from the ground up with a system that we've never dealt with before, then there probably would be some fees associated with that. It'll just depend. And again, we address it on a case-by-case basis. So, get in touch with your Titan rep, and we'd be happy to talk about it.
Absolutely.
All right. And we have another one here. Can all of the data easily be pulled out of the system?
Jeff?
So, I'll start, and then Brent, if you want to finish it out. So, yeah, all the data that is going in, once again, it's going to be garbage in, garbage out. So the better data you get in, the better data you can pull out. And you can pull it out in a variety of different ways. One, you can use it right inside of the platform through the work order maintenance system that we have, and you can manage in there. We also have a number of canned reports that already can pull the data out. And then likewise, we can push it into a BI report and pull all of that data into our BI or push it into your BI system. So anything that you can actually that you're putting in, we can pull out. You can see it. You can pull out. So there's a variety of different ways that you can pull that data, but it is easily to pull out. Brent?
Yeah, you're spot on, Jeff. I mean, we have a really robust schedule report functionality, pre-can report functionality. Those are things that can be run at whatever frequency or scheduled to run at whatever frequency you would like to have that sent out. We have customers today that are automating reports, hundreds of reports that go out to haulers, to service providers, to testing vendors, right? It's things that are constantly coming in and out of the system. So it's easily accessible. The custom format, right? If there's not a pre-canned, is something that you can dive into and actually generate more specific reports based on the data sets that you want to pull out. But they are easily accessible from the system today.
Cool. Anything else, Connor, that's coming through the question channel?
I don't see any other questions from the audience, so I think that just means we did a really great job covering all the content.
Looks like we just had a couple more
So I will
pop up, Connor.
Oh yeah, there is another one here. Okay, does your system support items other than fuel?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Brent.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, certainly in the fuel space is an aspect of it, but when you're talking about maintenance, right? Maintenance is more than just the fuel aspect of it. It's general stores, your coolers, it's your maybe your canopy, your HVAC systems. It's all of those aspects of it can be tracked through the system. If we kind of step back on our inspection process, right, we have clients in the healthcare industry that are actually using our handheld app to perform healthcare inspections on the location. So, certainly it is broader than just the fuel space, but probably the large majority of our clients today are in the fuel C-store business, but we have a lot of clients even outside of that as well.
And I'll just add to that, Brent. You talked about stepping back to the inspection webinar we did in an inspection process. So we do have a lot of inspections that are not fuel related. Same process, those inspections could flow directly into a work order dispatch. It doesn't matter if it's fuel, however you have it set up, it would actually flow the same process for all types of equipment, all types of facility issues.
All right, and we just have one more, which is great because that's really all we have time for in the last little bit of the session here. So, can you do trend analysis showing problem locations or equipment?
Yes, across, taking all the data we've talked about from the alarms to the inspections now to the work order, that, takes you into that optimization process, getting all that data in one central location that you can, tag back to a location, or you can start looking at different pieces of equipment and do that trend analysis and pull that data out to see, are you having a problem with ABC piece of equipment, ABC vendor, or, this location, whether it's age, acquisition, whatever it happens to be, that being able to link the data from all of these different webinars is, the key to optimize, your future success.
Great point, Jeff.
Perfect.
Thanks, Jeff. And so I think with that, we're gonna wrap things up here. One thing we did want to highlight is that we appreciate all of you dialing in today. We do take your feedback and your questions very seriously, and to demonstrate that, we're actually planning a 2024 user conference. We haven't fully finalized when and where it's going to be, but getting your input on that from both the logistics and a content standpoint is going to be very important. So please keep your eyes open for a survey that's going to be coming through via email later this week. We really look forward to getting your feedback so we can make it a really exciting and productive event. Also, if you're on LinkedIn, please make sure to follow Titan Cloud Software. We post some of our sort of content materials around recent studies we've done and use cases and ways that people are fully maximizing their Titan Cloud software experience. We also let you know when and where we're going to be out in the field. So please make sure you follow us if you don't already. And then certainly we encourage any and all of you to reach out to your Titan support rep to schedule an operational business review. As many of you shared today, there may be some room for further utilization of the systems that you have at your disposal. And so we would love to help you uncover some of the key areas where we think we can help you make a big difference in terms of driving operational efficiency to your business using the Titan technology that you're already paying for. So we look forward to being in touch, and thank you all for joining. Brent, Jeff, and Connor, thank you all for being here as well, and we will look forward to speaking to anybody hopefully at NACS or other events coming up soon. All right.
Thanks, everyone.